Okay, I did some more work in between videos and I have a shadow set up for every character. The Pokemon back here. We have the shadow of the Metroid lady going onto the snow. We have Ganon's going over the snowbank and over here. We have the cows going underneath it this way, but we don't have one for Link. That's the one I saved to show you how to do it here. Now, you might be in a situation where there's no hard cast shadows like this. You might even be in a situation where maybe there's more than one light source, so there's more than one shadow. You might be in an overcast day where there's not really any shadows. There's just kind of or they're really blurry. Whatever shadows are in your photo of the background at the beginning, that's the kind of shadow you're going to have to make in your picture. So I can only show you how I'm going to match the shadows in mine. If you get stuck and need help in yours, and you need help during the office hours, I can help you out in that regard too. So right now I'm going to turn off the visibility of all my layers except for Link. Well, I'm going to turn them all off for a minute, except for the neighborhood. And what we're going to do is analyze how to figure out the shadows. We can see the shadows. I see the shadow of this snowbank here, and it's below the snowbank and to the left. This is the tip. This is the tip. It's down and to the left. Here's another shadow here. You zoom in, you can tell that this shadow is of this right here. So the shadow here is down and to the left. However, if we look at the house, shadow is to the left and down. However, for this tree, the shadow is down, but to the right. So from this information, we can figure out where our light source is. And actually, it's in the image. You can see the sun is somewhere around here. But all we have to do is follow the shadow. And luckily, this is a very straight line, so we can follow that shadow directly up. The sun's going to be about here. So what I did is I made a layer. And by the way, these are all in groups. The reason I did that is each character has a whole bunch of layers. I did adjustment layers for just the character of the Metroid person. The shadow is all here, the character's all here. And after a while, all these layers add up. So what you do is you click on this folder and it's called a group. It looks like a folder. Then you can drag layers into it, double click on the name, rename it to whatever you want. And then you can organize your stuff so you don't have 700 layers and you're scrolling. So it's important to organize your layers and to name them. I grade you on that. So, all right, so I'm going to turn Samus back off, and we're going to focus on Link. But first we have to figure out where the sun is. So I made a layer just to scribble on. Like, I don't want to mess up my picture, so I make a layer where I can just scribble on it and not worry about wrecking it. So if I follow this point up, the sun's going to be about here. So if I take a paintbrush and paint that in, the sun's about there. So if I follow that to this tree, it lines up with the shadow. If I follow that to the tip of this snowbank, it ends up there. I could even take my brush and try it out. If I paint a straight line from here to here, it runs right through the tip of this snowbank. So we got the angle right, because if we run it from here to the tree, it also runs right through the tree. We can try it again from here to this shadow, and it runs right through the tip of this bump. I think this tip is here. Yeah, we got our shadow angle pretty much correct. Close enough for what we're doing. So I am going to leave that there just as a reference, and then at the end, I'll just get rid of it. So I called it sun point, and then I made another one for angles. And that's how I figured out the angles of all the shadows. All right, so let's use this to figure out Link. So here's Link. Turn him back on. All I have to do is run a line from the sun to where it would stop hitting the top of his head to get that angle. So let's take a brush. Yeah. Let's do a brush. And we're going to go from the sun off the top of his head. Well, I kind of missed it, but it's close enough to get the idea. And then I'm going to take a brush from the sun to the bottom of his feet. Let's see how far it would go. So I missed a little bit. There's that foot. There, that hits it off the foot. So this is kind of the angle and the direction of where the shadow is going to go. Now, how do we actually make the shadow? This is how we do it. I'm going to go and select the layer that Link is on. That's it right here. See? And fix his leg. If anyone is interested in how, anyone is interested in how they really want me to show them how I added the leg in so that it covers up my thumb, I can show you that during office hours if you want to. I don't think I need to do it in this video for this assignment, but I can definitely show it to you if you want. All right, what we're going to do is take our Link layer, select it, and I'm going to hold down Control and click on the thumbnail. It selects Link. Then I'm going to click on a new layer, and it makes a new layer above here. And whoops. There we go. What I'm going to do is take a shadow color. So I'll click on my foreground color, and I want it to be almost black, but not black. And the sky is blue, so I'm going to pick a dark blue and go down to almost blackish blue. And then I'm going to hit Alt Delete. Okay. So here is, and I can go to select, deselect. Here is a shadow color of Link here. I'll name the layer Link. I'm going to drag it underneath the Link layer. But now we can't see it, but it's directly underneath it. So if I go to the Move tool, move it over, it's there, it's just underneath it. Now if I go to Edit, Free Transform, or Control T, what we can do is grab it in the middle. I'm using the Move tool. Grab it in the middle and line up the feet. And then I'm going to go up to these tops, right? And I'm going to hold down the Control over one of these corners. It'll turn to a white triangle. And I'm going to drag it so that it's kind of going in the same angle of the sun ray here. So I'm going to grab it with Control and drag it down here. It's going to look really weird. It's not going to look nice. And then I'm going to grab this one and drag it so it's kind of like that angle. And that looks bad. So I'm going to zoom out. I need more room. Yeah, I need more room here. Now, Control, grab a corner, stretch it out. Stretch it out. And I'm going to move this to there. Move this in. We want the feet to line up under there, but we want the top to be heading pretty far out. Whoops. If it gets gummed up, you just switch it around. I'm going to make it so these two lines are not parallel, so I'm going to try to make them a little parallel. And these two lines aren't, so I'm going to try to make those more parallel. Stretch it out. There we go. And if it's not exactly right, as long as you get it so it's going out to about that distance, you're going to get a pretty convincing shadow. I'm going to line up the feet, and then I'm going to hit enter. I don't need this sun point or the sun angle anymore. And let's see. I am going to rename this layer shadow, link shadow. There's so many layers here, I'm going to get confused. And it looks pretty good, but it doesn't look necessarily realistic. What we're going to do is turn the opacity down while the layer is selected until we can see some grass and stuff through it. Now, how do we match it? If we look at this shadow on the sidewalk, you can see how see-through it is. So to match that, we're going to use the opacity and we're going to use this mode here. It says normal. Click on it, go to multiply. Now the shadow's really dark, which is okay. And now click on opacity and drag it down until this looks similar to this. Like compare it to another shadow. So I'm going to turn it down. If I go too far, this is too light compared to this. If I go way up here, this is too dark compared to this. So you're going to move it around until they look similar. So now it's a little bit closer. Does it look perfect? No. And if you stare at it long enough, you'll figure out why. There's a little bit more. Let's look at the shadow here. Look at the shadow of this blue, of this snow is blue. And the shadow of this, it's almost like a greenish brown. So this shadow needs a tint of blue. With the layer connected, in my case, I'm going to click on the adjustment layer and go to color balance. I don't want to change all the colors of all the layers, so I'm going to click this button here, and I'm going to turn the blue way up, and it makes my shadows purple, which is in the right direction, but that doesn't match this. So it's too much red. So I'm going to move this dial away from the red and towards the cyan. Now this blue is starting to look a little bit more like this blue. You might want to move from magenta a tiny bit towards green. And you'll start to get more of a matching blue. This is starting to really match that pretty well. Now you can close this. So you got to match the color of your shadows, the direction of your shadows, the shape of your shadows. And I see there's a little error here. You can just use an eraser where things don't line up exactly the way you want. Click on the right layer and make it work. There we go. Now the next thing is these shadows are sharp sometimes, and the further away they get a little blurry. So you can leave that here, but we're going to make it a little blurry as it gets over here. So what I'm going to do is go to my lasso, and I'm going to go to feather and say 25 pixels, right, 25 in there. That'll give us a blur of what we select. And I'm going to select the far half of the shadow. And I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I'm only going to blur it a little bit. Maybe 2.5%, 3%. So the shadows here are pretty sharp, but as they get further away, they get blurry. So let me back it up and see how that looks from far away. looks pretty good. And that's just as dark as that, and it's just as dark as that. And now you can really just fine tune. If you don't like it, you can lighten it a little more. I think I'm going to lighten it a little more. So that's still about as dark as that, but it's a little bit lighter, not as intense. And that's how you do the shadows. I played with the free transform tool, the opacity adjustment layers, and the angles. All right. Now you might have a totally different way of approaching this. You might not even have to deal with shadows that much, but I hope that watching this got your mind going at least on how to approach some of these problems. All right. So let's see what it looks like with all of our, whoops. I turned off all my layers here. Let's put all of our things back. Oh, here's Link's leg. There we go. What layer is that? We have a free-floating leg over here. There we go. Something's gone wildly wrong here. There we go. There. Oh, regular leg. Okay. Link shadow. Good, good, good. Don't need that. So we'll put the Pokemon back in. So now it's just Link and a Pokemon with its shadow. And its shadow corresponds with the sun angle. We have, what else we got? Ganon. Now they're talking. Let's see. Now it looks like there's way too many here because our group is open. All these link files are open. So I'm going to close that to make it more manageable. And let's see. Yep. Good. Now we can turn on the cow. We can turn on Samus. And I think for me that's done. I can't wait to see what you come up with, what challenges that you run into. And if you get stuck, feel free to come on to the office hours and we can present it and work on it, anything you're stuck on together, and get it figured out. Okay? Hope you enjoy this project and have a lot of fun and you learn a whole bunch.